Hello and welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. Hey, we're going to have a lot of fun today, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to make a quick trip over to Costa Rica so I can get my marlin fix. I got to hear how the marlin bit. I know they had their big Ship of Fools tournament over there this week. I want to hear if our boy Craig Sutton did well in that. Then we're going to come back to Florida, and we're going to make a trip around the state. We're going to get our fishing reports, and we're going to find out what fish are on the move. But maybe more importantly than that, I've got a question for the boys tonight. Our guys that do the Action Spotters have taught hundreds of kids to fish. I've failed myself at teaching kids to fish, and I've gotten it right a few times. And believe you me, it's not by accident if you cultivate a love of fishing in your child or grandchild. Learn how to do it right. You're going to learn it from the pros tonight. Florida Sportsman's Action Spotter will be brought to you this and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, they're bringing people and nature back together. By Tournament Master Chum, oh, it's the best chum on earth, I promise you. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. By Young Boats, you want the finest in flats bay and offshore hybrids? Check out youngboats.com. And by the Castaway Hat Co, the hats that are helping our ocean. Okay, we're going to get this evening started in dreamland, in paradise, if you will. My favorite paradise, Nosara Paradise, where we check in with one Craig Sutton. Craig, how we doing?
I'm good, Captain Ricky. Just got home from Costa Rica yesterday afternoon.
Yep.
4 beautiful days down there, 3 days fishing.
Did you win the Ship of Fools tournament?
No, we kind of personally stunk it up a little bit, but you know the company did well to explore our 26 Super Pan. Won it for the second time in 4 years.
How about that? Outstanding.
Won it with me first time with the highest one-day score in, I believe, in existence of the tournament. We came from mired in last place to doing a Grand Slam plus. And you know what the cool part about it was? Just an FYI, we got every strike all day long, and we blitzed them. 2 marlin, several sailfish, big mahi, within 300 yards of the first location.
How about that? That's cool.
In 4,000 feet of water.
How was fishing in general this week, Craig?
It was super, super good on Wednesday. Did a triple on the Wonder, a double on the Adventure, the 23 Panga, the one I fished on. You can believe that. And some good critters, nice mahi, yellowfin whip'em, and sailfish. And then did 1 marlin on Wednesday on the Discover also. And then me and Matt fished Thursday, and we couldn't buy a bite. We didn't see nothing. Nothing. And we fished pretty late. And then the first day of the tournament was a little slow for us, but, still pretty good. Several marlin were caught and sailfish too. And then not much on the critters. There's a few dolphin, nothing big, and then a few small yellowfin. But they were there. We were on a porpoise pod at the end of the second day of some nice fish, and they were wadded up really weird. It looked like there was just maybe you could throw a big 12-foot net over where they were popping, and the porpoises were doing the same thing. But the birds were all over it. It was kind of weird, but the second day in the afternoon, I just wonder if it was that new moon. Second day, the water we were fishing an edge where it went from a kind of a green, and a little bit inshore was a little bit of the red tide left over, kind of a blended water with the blue water at 4 in the afternoon, Ricky. That water cleared it up, buddy, and we were fishing a barrel while the Wonder Discover was fishing a floating net offshore, and it was good. Marlin, sailfish. We got 1 sail. I lost the marlin. Had a real nice sail get 1 jump. We had real small live baits when we switched over, and we couldn't use big hooks, and I think that might have had something to do with why we lost a couple of the fish. But, it was good fishing. Good fishing. We were right next to the harvester, caught a nice blue, about a 250, 300 pounder. Got some good videos, but I looked at it today. I think it's too far away for us to post. But good fishing.
Good.
Good fishing. Company did well in the tournament.
Craigie, you're like me. You're a father and a grandfather, and you've probably made some mistakes with some of your kids teaching them to fish. I know I have. Help me out. If I've got a, 4 to 8 year old that I want to bring into fishing, give me your best pointer.
Well, I have a ton of grandkids, and I call all of them, whether they're step or girl, whatever, grandkids. If they call me Poppy, really. But I made a lot of mistakes. But I think just have fun with them and relax, and just remember the experience is once in a lifetime. Sometimes for kids. So, and but I've made a lot of mistakes with my grandkids, boy, I have. But I got a lot of them that love fishing, and my son and daughter, love to fish. And I made a lot of mistakes with them, but I finally figured out just to have fun with them.
Yeah, I think the best advice I ever got on it, Craigie, was when you start them out fishing, make sure you're fishing for something that you don't care anything about catching. You and I both know, taking your young child fishing, as much as I love Nosara, that's not the place to start them out. Standing on the dock catching pinfish is the place to start them out.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's I was kind of fortunate. I raised my two kids, Craig and Rochelle, and I started them out. It was kind of accidentally. It was more God's path than it was anything else. But I started Craigie out with brim fishing.
Yep.
With little corks, and then went to fly fishing for him with a little yellow bucktail fly on a cane pole, and then my daughter Rochelle too, and then went to the bridge fishing, catfishing, and then the bridge, and then a 12-foot John boat, and kind of slowly stepped them up. And I've got some quality anglers in my family as far as they are, but my son fishes a lot of those tournaments, but my daughter's the better angler.
I've seen that a lot too. Most times, when you start with new anglers, the girls will do better. They listen better.
But I say one thing special about any kid, whether it's grandkids or just kids in general, is turning them on to fishing and seeing them just light up on it. It's just, and it's a great sport. It's a sport that'll bite them when they're young, and it'll probably kill them when they get old.
That's right, just like it's doing to us. All right, Cap, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. Tell people how they can get a hold of you. Go to Nosara.
Just pick up the phone and call me at 904-591-2161.
You got it. Thank you, Craig.
Pleasure.
Craig Sutton from Nosara Paradise Fishing. Now, let's start in Florida, up in the northeast corner, and check in one David Voorhees. David, it sounds like you're on the water. You fishing?
Yes, sir. We did the evening tide today. We've been, it's been a tough week, Rick. That new moon had produced another worm hatch this past week, so it made for the really tough redfish, and the reds were just gorged on these palua worms, and so it was really tough. But thank God for the trout. Today the trout bit pretty good. We actually caught some really nice fish on the paddle-tail grubs today. The grubs seem to outfish live bait today. But this time of year, we're seeing a lot of anchovies coming in. This is the time of year they show up. Of course, you'll get the blues, the Spanish mackerel, and the trout. And I think they're all schooled up together. I think, a lot of guys, they'll get into the blues or get into the Spanish mackerel, and they have a tendency to move on. They don't think there's going to be anything else there. But I tell you, one time last week, we sat and we caught, several blues and a couple of Spanish mackerel, and then all of a sudden a school of really nice trout showed up, and before you knew it, we had 5 nice keeper trout in the box.
David, Did you get the feeling they were under the blues, maybe?
Well, I thought that. I've always thought that. I've always thought when you get in those bluefish, you need to get below them to get to the trout. The trout are going to be in deeper water. But this was just it was just a point. It wasn't a very deep point. It was about 4 feet of water. But it was just, the water was rushing over this point. The bait was being flushed over it. And everything was feeding on this particular point. Today, I can honestly say I think our number one thing today was fishing points. I think we did our best fishing came off of points today. Mm-hmm. And that's usually the case. But let me tell you, you got to look for the birds. The birds were key to our success today. And we, running down the bank, we saw a group of birds, kept our eye on them, and sure enough, we saw something crashing up there right next to the birds. We pulled in there on the first cast. We ended up with a 16-inch trout, and on the next cast, we pulled in a 29-inch red.
Oh, that sounds like you're off to a great day. Hey, I got a question for you before you go.
Go ahead.
You've taught, and you're noted for this. It's one of your great accomplishments of teaching a whole lot of kids how to fish. Give me a good
Absolutely.
tip. Give me a good tip for taking a 4 to 10-year-old, I guess, on their first fishing trip, and tell me what to do.
Well, don't be targeting what you want to catch.
Yeah.
You know, I tell you what, as a kid growing up, I mean, two fish that really come to mind with me when I was a kid growing up that I still love doing. Of course, the speckled trout. Back in the days, we could sit on a spot and just wear the speckled trout out.
Right.
And I think that's a good fish for kids to get on because you can get into big numbers of them. And the other thing is like sunfish, brim, bluegill.
Oh, yeah.
Those are great things to start kids out on fishing because you can catch a lot of them. They're small fish. They're nothing too big. They're not going to be afraid of them. And they're going to keep their attention. And that's the key thing. Don't fish too hard, and don't make it all about fishing. Mix it up. Go look at dolphins. Go teach them about birds. Teach them about nature. This is not just a time to teach your kids about fishing, but it's also a good time to teach them about the outdoors and just nature itself and how important it is to have these good oyster reefs that we see, how important it is to maintain the grass, the spartina grass, the sawgrass, the eel, all these grass, how important it is. And, we got to teach this next generation to protect what we've got. And there's not a better way to do it than get them out on the water. And, again, my tip is don't make it all about fishing.
I like it, David. That's outstanding advice, and I know that you've set a whole lot of kids on a path to ruination through spending all their time and money fishing, and you need to be proud of that. Cause
I hope so.
I know
Rick.
you have, David. I've talked to a number of them. Thank you so much, Cap. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
You know where I'll be, Rick.
Captain David Voorhees. Our thanks to David Voorhees for a great Northeast Florida report. That means it's time for East Central and Jim Ross. Jim, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Rick, how are you doing?
Good. Was your weather a little better this week?
It was off and on. Got some more cobia reports. The guys that are out of Ponce Inlet are still finding them on the rays. And then, of course, I'm still finding them. Me and a couple of other guys are still finding them on some of the reefs and wrecks down out of the central part of my region around Ponce and from Ponce down to Canaveral and then from Canaveral to Sebastian. It's still in that 60 to 90 foot range we're finding the cobias. Lots of sharks still out there. Tarpon are starting to show up on the beach. And the guys getting offshore, they're starting to get some sailfish and a few dolphin, not a bunch, but a few. So we've got a little bit better offshore report than what we've had in the last couple of months.
Jim, are you chumming your cobia on the wrecks, or how are you catching them on the wrecks?
No, just dropping live baits down and drifting across them mainly.
Gotcha.
I just, if you're marking fish just above the bottom, 10 to 20 feet off the bottom, it's either a red snapper or it's a cobia. The rest of the snappers and the groupers are gonna stay, real close to the bottom. And if it's something like a kingfish or something like that, they're typically up a little higher in the water column.
Got it. Great. Hey, let me ask
So I'm
you.
just looking at the sounder and letting the sounder determine where we're putting the bait.
And then you drop them on downriggers, or what do you do?
I'm doing the stupidest thing you've ever seen. Well, maybe not because it's working. I'm taking a single 1 ounce egg sinker,
right,
and about a 5/0 to 6/0 size circle hook, and just dropping it down with a live bait on it, a greenie or a pokey, and just getting it just above the wreck and just drifting across it. And it just, when it comes tight, it's got fish on it. So,
nothing stupid about that at all, Cap.
Yeah.
But how about your inshore?
Inshore bite has been slow. The black drum have not picked back up. There's a few here and there, especially around places like Haulover Canal and a couple of the bridges. But they were out on the flats in good numbers where we were sight casting to them, and they've kind of just abandoned that. But they haven't gotten back to the hard structure yet, so not much there. Small trout, not any really big trout yet. That should start any time now. April and May are a big trout months, and then of course, anytime that you get around a spoil island or a mangrove shoreline, you've got the potential for some slot-sized redfish, but they haven't been thick either. We do have a lot of finger mullet showing up, so that should improve our predators. Any minute we should start getting more predators in the lagoon system.
That's real good. Jim, before you go, you've taught an awful lot of kids how to fish. All of us at Guided for a Living have done that. Give me some advice. Give me the best thing you can think of. Where do most dads go wrong teaching either their sons or grandsons how to fish?
They set the bar too high. Your expectations versus what your son's or daughter's skill set is so disproportionate in most cases that you're going to find that you're going to be upset at the child. The child's going to be upset at you. Everybody's expecting more, and nobody's able to provide it. So bring a 5-gallon bucket of patience. Whatever the kids catch, let them enjoy it. Even if it's stingrays and catfish, it's a fish. Hey, you caught one. Good practice for when you get one of those jumping fish like a ladyfish or a snook. So just don't set the bar too high. Just let the child have fun.
Yeah, and you know what? That's what I'm starting to hear from all our guys. You have to make it fun for the kids. You want them to become your best fishing buddy, but it ain't gonna happen tomorrow afternoon. it may start, but it ain't gonna happen tomorrow afternoon. Yep. I think the only success story I ever really felt like with my kids and grandkids, my one grandson Parker, who didn't want to do anything but fish from the time he was 4 years old on. Finally at 12, I took him out and he caught his first sailfish, and Jimmy collapses into my arms and he's just weeping, and I don't know what's wrong with him. I said, "Buddy, what's the matter?" He said, I've been trying to do that my whole life. You can't have a whole life yet. All right. Cap,
awesome.
As always, we appreciate it. Please tell me we can talk to you next week.
I look forward to it, Rick.
Captain Jim Ross from the East Central section with a great report and even more advice to make it fun for your kids. Hey, we're going to head down to Miami and get a report from Alan Sherman. Before we do that, let's have a word from the Castaway Hat Company. I'll bet you don't even remember the days all us cool kids would rub baby oil mixed in with iodine to help us get even darker in the summertime. Being burnt was cool, and even if you weren't a surfing legend, you sure looked the part. Oh man, have a lot of us paid the price for our vanity. We never knew the skin problems and health damage that awaited us. Today's fishermen have the option of being so much healthier in the sun than we ever thought of, thanks in no small part to Castaway Hat Company, who not only provides our podcasters with Castaway straw hats, but they make the coolest prints on the underside of the brims you ever saw. You may think your Bimini top or T-top blocks the sun, but as an awful lot of us OGs can tell you, you can't have enough protection from sun damage. Do what we do. Put on the sunblock and put on your Castaway straw hat. You'll look the part of today's best anglers, and you'll even be helping the environment. That's because each Castaway hat sold by the Castaway Company, they're going to donate 1 pound of trash removal from our waterways. That's right. Each time you buy a hat, Castaway Company's going to pay to have a pound of trash removed. The burning Florida sun won't be roasting your skin, and believe me, when you age a few years, you'll thank us old guys that have spent a lifetime on the water. So go to CastawayHatCo.com and get your best sun protection today. The Castaway Hat Company, the hat that's helping our seas. It's time for Alan Sherman. Let's go on down to Miami and see what's happening on South Beach. Alan, how are you?
Doing fine, Rick. How are you?
I'm doing excellent, buddy. Give me a fishing report. What's going on in South Florida?
So we're in April, spring. We should be catching fish like crazy, and we are, but we're not catching them like crazy. We're just catching them.
Okay.
So what that means is there's fish around. They're just not around like you'd hope to see them at the end of March and into April. The spring run hasn't really taken off yet. You know, the guys are catching sailfish offshore. They're getting only a couple of kingfish. And April's usually a pretty big month for big kingfish. They haven't shown up yet, only a few of them. There's bonitas, blackfin tunas are starting to show up, but we haven't seen the big numbers of the big fish yet. So maybe that's to come in the next week or two, hopefully. But there's action out there. You know, if you put your time in, fishing outside the outer reef, 80 feet to 300, looking for rips, you're going to find some fish, especially if you fish some live baits under a kite. Goggle eyes, threadfin herring, large pilchards have been doing fairly well. The guys are consistently catching sailfish. They're just not getting double digits like you might see in April, and that hasn't happened yet. A little further offshore, there's been a pretty good weed line in 800 to 1,000 feet of water, and there has been a mix of dolphin offshore on this rip. A lot of weeds, the big patches, a lot of birds, but only scattered fish. So they're getting some undersized fish, they're getting some keeper schoolies, and then they're getting some fish up to 30 pounds. So it's worth going out there to take a look and give it a shot for those bigger dolphin. Guys are bottom fishing in 500, catching golden tiles, a few gray tiles. So there's some fish to be caught on the bottom, and then over the artificial reefs. They're catching a few cobias now. I know that's a fish you like to hear a little bit about. They're starting to show up. Some nice muttons, 10 to 12 pounds, and then some amberjacks up to 30 or 40 pounds. So there is some fish to be caught here in South Florida.
That's a fine report, Alan. Anything exceptional going on inshore or just steady?
So inshore, if you guys are looking for tarpon or snook, there's going to be a great tide this weekend, late afternoon into the early evening. Outgoing tide, it'll end around 8 or 9 o'clock, and there are tarpon out there to be caught. Now the fish are starting to look for crabs. Unless you have, a giant shrimp, they'll eat that as well, but the crabs are starting to catch some fish. And the cool thing about crabs is if there's a permit anywhere nearby, he'll eat that too. And so the guys fishing for tarpon will catch a permit here and there. There's snook in the inlets. They're going for pinfish. They're fishing them deep near the bottom, especially where the inlet rolls over to the deeper water. So you got the shallow water like Government Cut. It's like 8 or 9 feet, and then it drops down to 50. On that rollover, if you mark some fish there, drop a pinfish on it, you got a good shot at catching a nice snook.
Good deal. Hey, Alan, real quick before you go, you've taken an awful lot of young kids fishing in your time. Give me a tip. Give me a lot of us dads and granddads have screwed it up by putting too much pressure on them or doing something wrong. Help the guys out. How can they do a better job of teaching their kids to fish and getting them hooked on the outdoors?
So I don't know that I did it the best way. I mean, I think as a father, you kind of just try things and sometimes they work. What I found that worked for me with my kids, and soon it's going to be with my grandkids, is I found some lakes nearby where we lived, and they had bass in them, largemouth. Back then, it was mostly largemouth. Today, there's probably peacocks in those same lakes. There was one called the Treetop Park, and it had really nice largemouth in it. But it was a park, so there was a lot of things to do around, not just the fishing side of it. And when the kids were really young, to keep them occupied for more than a few seconds was tough. Yeah. But if you bought a dozen or two and you fished them under a Cajun Thunder float, they just always got eaten. And it usually didn't take but a few seconds to get a strike. So as long as you can keep the kids catching fish, a fishing rod bent, seeing the fish jumping around, watching the float bobbing as the bait fish gets excited underneath it, that will keep their attention for 30, 40, maybe even an hour, Not much longer than that, though. So you got to have something else for them to do, and the park has other things that they can do as well. Some good snacks is always a good thing to have, too.
Yep. I think a park is the perfect place to take them to start, Alan. I think that's a great idea, and I think it's like we've all said, it's very important to fish for fish that you don't care anything about catching, because if the fish gets away, that's okay. Cap, we always appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Look forward to it.
All right, Captain Alan Sherman.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalu marine engine oils.
What?
Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalu full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalu marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is the mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to its name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to use second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master Chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore-offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. Our thanks to Captain Alan Sherman for a great Miami report. I am dying to know what's going on at Bud and Mary's in Alamorada. Talk to me, Brandon.
Rick, how's it going?
It's going good. I hope your fish are biting better than ours are.
Oh, they're biting pretty good. Spring has sprung down here, and water temperature's getting just right, and it's tarpon time. They finally showed up and got happy.
Well, I had somebody that's headed down there in, I think, the first or second week of June and wanted to know who to book out of Alamorada. That was an easy decision for me. He wants to catch a tarpon.
Oh, send them my way. I'll try to put them on them.
You got it. What's biting besides tarpon?
Well, we've also been having some good luck triple tailing. Well, at least that's something that I've been doing. That's been great. There's been a lot of good fish around. And also been running into like a stray cobia here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Been talking to some people around the docks who've been going for snook and reds. They've been getting to a pretty decent snook bite. If people are looking to go offshore, there's probably still some good shots at sailfish right now. Also, they've been catching a couple good mutton snappers out on the reef and filling up the cooler with some yellowtails. And that's pretty much what's been going on down here. But tarpon time is definitely here. I know we have a little cold front this Saturday and Sunday, but it looks like a little mini front. Shouldn't get too cold. So they might not be happy those 2 days, but I feel like after that, they'll be right back to where they're at now.
That's why I love this time of year so much, Brandon. It's getting better every day. I mean, instead of us watching it go away every day as the water cools off. So this absolutely one of my favorite months of the year because it's only going to get better in Alamorada, at least from now through July, isn't it?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah. March, April, May, love it. But even June, July, still great.
Oh, yeah.
And then you also you have those big free-flowing triple tails, which are a lot of fun too. And offshore, then you have that transition where you can go and catch a lot of mahi and blackfins offshore. Lots of good action from here through July. And even after that, fishing's still great. I know it's slowed down here during, August, September, October, but there's always something biting in Islamorada.
Isn't that the truth? Brandon, as always, we appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Absolutely.
Thanks again. Captain Brandon Bean Storin out of Bud and Mary's in Islamorada. Time to hit the West Coast. But before we do that, I've got to tell you about D.O.A. I recently had a chance to stop by D.O.A. World Headquarters in Stuart, Florida. I was not the least bit surprised to see company founder Mark Nichols hard at work on a new fish catching invention. What was shocking to me was he was working on the original D.O.A. shrimp, the same shrimp he patented in 1985. The stealthiest wintertime bait ever made, the only bait that lands so subtly that spooky fish will never hear it coming, was getting Mark's full attention. "What are you doing?" was the obvious question. Mark looked at me sideways. "I've never stopped working on the shrimp, dude. It's got to catch more fish every year, so I've got to make each batch better than the last one. Hey, I got all the production in-house right here at D.O.A., and that means today's 3 and 4 inch shrimp are consistently the best we've ever built." Well, you know what? I get it now. The D.O.A. shrimp that fooled 1 million fish in 1985 has had to keep up with the times to keep making your fishing better. Hey, the water's warming up, but the fish are still spooky. The 2022 version of the D.O.A. shrimp is the stealthiest, most lifelike. Well, it's just the deadliest bait you can throw. Our thanks to Brandon Storn for a great Islamorada report. That means it's time to hit 10,000 Islands and talk with Captain Steve Dahl. Steve, how are you?
I'm tired, Rick.
What are you tired from?
Here.
Oh, yeah?
Tarpon.
Got some big ones?
Yeah, it's on right now. It's about, it's my favorite time is when these fish first show up, and we talked about it a little bit last week about, they're a little bit easier to catch. I like to catch mine artificials too if I got people on board who like to throw those, and it's been a mix of baits and artificials, and it's been really good. And we're seeing fish close to shore. We're also seeing them a couple miles out. So if you're feeling that those fish are maybe getting a little pressured, or where you like to catch them in the area passes, or right outside the islands, if that's just too a little bit busy for you, push out a little bit, because you're going to find pods of fish that aren't really getting touched. And we've been doing a little bit of that the last couple of days, because the word's out now, and people are out and about. So my best recommendation right now is try to keep your colors simple on the artificial side. Throw dark stuff, purples, blacks, things, dark hues work exceptionally well. And then on the live bait side, that's where you're going to have to bring the full menu, because they're tarpon. One day they're going to eat a crab. The other day they're going to eat a fin herring. The other day they're going to eat a piece of cut ladyfish. So you're going to have to stock up and really either spend some money at the bait shop or spend the time finding and procuring bait. So keep all that in mind. You'll up your chances greatly if you're fishing a couple rods with different baits. Let the fish tell you what they want, and you'll score some fish.
What's a big one?
Well, it's all relative, I guess. What's a big one? We don't weigh them anymore, obviously, and there's length and girth measurements and all that fun stuff to get calculated ones. But yeah, I call those a wash. I think anything over 100 pounds, you're drinking a bottle of water afterwards. And,
that's a big one. Yes, sir.
That's a big fish.
In the South Florida sun, that is definitely a big one. I
know
your buddy up the road a little ways loves playing with the juveniles, Captain Greg. But you're awesome. You're going for the full bore. Yeah,
this time of year we gotta strap up and be men, and we gotta make it work. So
gotcha.
That's for sure.
Hey, let me ask you a quick question before you go.
Sure.
All right, you've in your career, like we all have, you've taught an awful lot of kids to fish.
Absolutely.
I thought Alan Sherman had a great point. He said find a park to take them to. So if they fish 20, 30 minutes and then they want to go run around chasing their buddies, that's fine. Give me a good tip for taking young kids on a charter boat to go fishing with you.
Yeah, I always tell the parents, I always ask if, children are going to be on board, and, I encourage it. But I also let the parents know, hey, this is your trip. We can tailor this any way you want. If the kids are absolutely just getting bored, playing in the bait tank and, doing things that kids do, and if the fishing's just not hot and heavy for them. You know, we could try to go find some species that are a little bit less desirable, but a lot of fun to catch for kids. You know, I learned a long time ago that a bent rod is, you know, a fun rod, and that works really well. But I also tell parents, you know what, it's your trip. You want to go to the beach, let them blow off some steam, jump in the water, you know. I think, you know, having, you know, that ability to be flexible and knowing that kids, you know, attention spans aren't what they are. Maybe an hour and a half of good fishing is enough for them, and they want to go play on the beach the rest of the time, you know. So you just got to be, I think by offering that up to the family, it's really helped me over the years, and a lot of people do opt for kind of like that hybrid trip. So,
well said, buddy. I appreciate it so much, Steve. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
I can't wait.
Steve Dahl down in 10,000 Islands with great advice. Keep it fun. Our thanks to Steve Dahl for a great report out of 10,000 Islands and some great tips for taking your kids fishing. Let's move up a little bit to Southwest and talk to Greg Stamper. Greg, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Rick. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm getting a little warmer every day. Water's starting to clear up, lay down a little bit. I'm doing better, buddy. I'm going to survive. Tell me how you're fishing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's similar in the aspect of the water started to clean up, and now we have a little bit of a blow this week, Rick. So we'll see how that all turns out for us. But the cool part, we've caught some really nice tarpon.
Good. Now, are you still chasing the juveniles, or are you talking about full-size giant tarpon?
No. We won't do juvies until about June or July. That's
I see.
When it gets full speed down here. These fish are anywhere from as small as about 60, 70 pounds up to maybe 100. These are in the back bays, and it's been very good for that. The other thing that we've been doing a lot of is trout. The trout fishing has been fantastic, and I cannot tell you how happy I am to have trout on a regular basis again.
Golly, you guys went quite a while without them. That's a great sign. I know here in Northeast Florida, we seem to see a pretty steady decline of the trout, and it's really hurting us, and we don't know why, because the limits are tight and nobody's keeping a fish over 20 inches, but we still seem to see a decline. I'm glad to see you guys catching them. Have you heard anything from offshore?
The way out offshore has been okay for the red. The red grouper has been decent. The mangrove snapper are just okay. Nothing more than about 1 to maybe 3 pounds came in this week. The nearshore guys is probably what I should talk about. The permit bite was very, very good this week. I saw a lot of permit caught. Guys were talking about days where they're catching 15 to 20 fish.
Woo.
Of course, I know exactly. They have to go out there and catch their own crabs. And they're going out, Rick, at 3, 4 in the morning, catching crabs for a few hours before they pick up their trips. So that's not easy, but they're doing a really good job of that. And the cobia bite has slowed down. So I don't know. It's kind of weird, but it is what it is.
Yep, they're headed north, I'm sure. Greg, we appreciate it as always. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
You got it.
All right, Captain Greg Stamper with a fine report where he says the red grouper and the mangrove snapper, it's just fair. The permit's the big deal going on in South Florida. Our thanks to Greg Stamper for a great Southwest report, and now it's time for West Central. But you know what? Before we go up there, let's hear a word from Shimano. You know, there's one thing that just about all our podcasters have in common. We all rely on Shimano gear when the best day is on the line. Whether it's Jim Ross chasing a tarpon with a Saragusa spinner, Alan Sherman catching muttons on his bait runners, Shimano gear is everywhere in Florida. You see, Shimano builds a reel for every fish that swims, and it seems like every year they come out with new models and names that take me 6 months to be able to pronounce correctly. But you know what? There's also a couple models that have stood the test of time and stand at the top of the brand even today. If I'm fishing an inshore spinner, be it fresh or salt, you can count on the fact I'm throwing a Shimano Stratic. That's because it's been around the block and it just never fails. And if there's a blue water boat looking for a sea monster, well, I can almost promise you there's a Shimano Tiagra pulling the big fish baits. Why do the best blue water guys count on Tiagras year after year? For the same reason I always throw a Stratic when I need to hook a redfish for my granddaughter. Because when the best day is on the line, you can count on the time-tested Tiagra and Stratic from Shimano. Our thanks to Greg Stamper for a great Southwest report. That means it's West Central time and time to talk to Captain Ray Markham. Raymond, how are you?
Fantastic.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. I don't get to hear that a lot from you. That's got me excited now. Give me a good report.
Well, we actually had a halfway decent day. Wind was under 25 and the sun was shining. Nobody got soaking wet. And we actually caught some fish. So it's all good. The snook fishing is just on fire. Man, the fish are coming out of the backcountry. They're coming out of the rivers, and God, everybody I know is catching fish, even the people that don't know how.
Like me, I could catch them, huh?
Well, even you.
Even me. I got you.
Especially you.
What's happening besides snook?
Well, we've got scattered reports of fairly decent trout fishing.
Mm-hmm.
And actually there's a few pretty good sized fish that are starting to show up, 3 to 4 pounds. And, that's the good part. Various parts of the bay are loaded with redfish. I say loaded enough to where guys that are tournament fishing know where to go, and they haul buggy there and they get their limit of fish and leave. So, the inshore fishing is doing pretty good. I can't complain. Still, we're recovering from the red tide stuff of years ago, but that's not so bad. Mouth of the Tampa Bay is starting to fill up with Spanish mackerel again. And the king mackerel bite is on fire offshore. Guys are finally starting to catch them again. This wind that we've had for the last week and a half, and I know we got some more coming this week, has been relentless. But in between the times, the wind settles and the seas start settling, the water starts clearing up again, and baits all over the joint, and guys are getting crazy, just whacking full out of fish. So I can't complain.
That's real good news, Ray Markham. I like the sound of that, especially with the Spanish and Kings moving into the bay. Fantastic. Thanks so much for a great report, and please tell me we can check with you next week.
Yes, sir. We'll definitely do that.
Captain Ray Markham from West Central Florida. Time to head on up into the Big Bend. William, how are you?
I'm doing good right down here in beautiful downtown Homosassa.
Good deal. Tell me about fishing in your area.
Well, right now we're looking at great April conditions. We just don't need any more wind or rain. But if you're looking to get the inshore slam, this is the month to do it. Today we did real well on trout using a 5.5-inch Glow D.O.A. jerkbait with a 3/0 owner hook through its nose, fishing very shallow water on the outside edges, not out deep. And we caught trout, snook, and redfish on the same bait in the same area. The redfish bite gets a little better once that tide turns in. So, don't be alarmed if you don't get your redfish. Just wait for that tide to turn in.
Gotcha. Okay. Have you heard anything from offshore at all?
Offshore, they're still doing very well out there in about 25 foot, getting a lot of mangrove snappers, tons of grunts, So if you like a good fish fry, it's that time of year to get a bunch of grunts. But a few sheepshead, they're about to wane out. The water temperature's gotten too high for them, so their spawn is about done. So, everybody kind of offshore is going to be waiting for that June 1st for gag grouper. They're catching and releasing some while they're out there targeting the snapper and everything. And they're getting some nice kingfish, too, out there at about the 30-foot range.
I got you. Good deal. Hey, William, before I let you go, let me ask you a question. You've, in your career, being I believe you told me, 4th-generation guide, which is just fantastic, but you guys have taught hundreds of kids to fish. Give me the secret.
Right.
Give me the secret for dads and grandpas that want to teach their kids and grandkids. They want them hooked on the outdoors. They want to teach them to fish. Give them a good way to start.
All right. This is the best scenario. When you get ready to go out with kids and, any adults that have never fished, take your ego, pull it out of you, crumble it up, throw it in the bushes, get rid of it.
Yep.
And slow things down. You know, what I do when I have kids on the boat, I get a lot of shrimp. I go out to a shallow rock, you know, make sure it's not rough. You don't want to beat them up. And pinfish, spot tails, grunts, if they get lucky and catch a flounder, a trout, or a mackerel, anything that pulls the pole is just glory for them. You know, as a seasoned angler, like a lot of us are, you know, that kind of stuff does not excite us, but you got to take your mind and put it inside their head, and anything pulling on the end of that line is going to just be just pure bliss for them. And even, you know, there's adults that I've fished before that have never caught a fish or never fished, and you just have to put yourself in that situation. And I always consider a successful charter for someone who's never caught a fish. If you can teach them to cast and catch a fish, that's success.
William, it is so funny you put it that way, because I had my little Zebco 33, and my whole family had been fishing at Lillian's Pond. Nobody had caught anything. They had all gone to the house, but I thought it was so cool to cast that Rapala and twitch it. And when you twitched it, it'd dive underwater and it'd pop right back up. And I just thought that looked so cool that I stayed later than anybody. And William, it was about then that I threw a cast that a 13-inch largemouth bass changed my life forever.
There it is, man.
He smashed it. Right now, if a 13-inch bass hit my Rapala, I go, oh, got one. Oh, okay, here you go, throw it back.
Exactly.
Back then, it was a half a mile to the house where my dad was, and I ran the whole way with the fish hanging for the end of my rod. I mean,
absolutely.
So you hit
and that's what hooks people on fishing.
Yep, that you hit the nail on the head. I was never the same. I can promise you that. Cap, we appreciate it ever so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
I'll be right here in downtown Homosassa.
All right, keep the golf carts straight. I'll see you soon. Thanks, Cap. That means it's Northwest time, and time for Kevin Lanier, who I got a feeling is counting the days till June 1st. Is that right, Cap?
Oh, amen, brother. I tell you what, some of the days like today make you really look forward to that San Francisco getting here.
Yep, I know what you mean. So how was today? How's it been for you?
It's been somewhat productive over the last, while I was gone, they still ran some trips and got some real nice triggers, porgies, sheep's head. So the fishing's been good. It's just you have to work to get them. Yep. And the east wind picked up on us this afternoon, so it just about shut them down. So, but it was a good day. It was a good day. Had some kids on the boat, bending rods for kids. I always say bending rods make smiling faces.
You know what? That's been our question tonight: is helping dads teaching their kids how to fish, and the overall consensus is check your ego, go catch something easy, and when they're ready to quit, it's time to quit. You agree?
Yep, I agree 100%. I think sometimes we want it's like parents that want their kids to play Major League Baseball. Right. Just let them go out there and have fun.
Right. It's very much like that. I was by a T-ball field the other day that said, our coaches are volunteers, our umpires are volunteers. We are not awarding any scholarships today, and there are no Major League scouts in the stands.
Exactly.
Enjoy your T-ball experience.
Right. I agree.
I think that's exactly right. And it's the same way with fishing. Make it fun. Let them quit when they're ready to quit. Cap, as always, we appreciate it. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Hey, we'll be back next week with bells on.
You got it. Thanks, Captain Kevin Lanier. Our thanks to Kevin Lanier for giving us all the Northwest news. Now it's time to head on out toward Louisiana and stop to talk with Tyler Massey just before the border. How we doing, Tyler?
I'm doing good, Rick. How are you guys?
Good. How's your fishing?
Fishing's been great. We're finally getting our springtime stuff, and weather's warming up nice. We got some, nice southeast breezes, so fishing's definitely shaping up for us.
That's outstanding. Is there any blue water fishing yet, or is everybody still close to shore?
No, we're still kind of hanging out close. So, inshore, the sheephead has definitely slowed down for us. Still picking a few away. we've been catching some redfish around the bridges and docks and that kind of stuff in Snares of Sound. So that's been a good thing. Trout fishing hasn't really gone full blast yet, but we're definitely starting to pick up some on the grass flats and outside of the canals and outside the rivers. So just in another couple a week of warm weather, so we'll have us in the right spot with those.
No cobia yet, huh?
Yeah, actually, we have our first few cobia we're caught in the last couple of days, and we've got some south wind coming. The piers actually started catching a few. There's 2 or 3 caught today, and
good.
And it seemed like quite a few got seen in boats too. So that's going to be hopefully we get a few that pour through here, and it's one of our favorite things to fish for. But it just hasn't been great in the last few years. But hopefully we'll have some to fish for this year.
Yeah, I hope so. Tyler, we had a guest last week. I don't know if you've heard it or not, but a fisheries biologist, Scott Meyer, who said that at Rosenthal School in Miami they raise 100,000 cobia a season, and they're currently selling them overseas where they raise them in big floating pens and use them for aquaculture. I don't know about you. Supposedly it costs like $1 to raise a cobia to the size to where you'd let him go in the ocean. I'm all in. I'll send $10 for that, won't you?
Yeah, heck yeah, we'll do it.
Send me.
We'll get the whole herd of them for over here.
That's right. And if a bluefish eats one of my baby cobia, I'm gonna beat the fool out of him. I'll tell you that. Cap, as always, we appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
We'll be here, Rick.
All right, Captain Tyler Massey puts a wrap on our trip around the state this evening. It's been a lot of fun. We learned a lot, and I hope you did too. Always keep in mind, this is the time of year where parents start breaking their kids into fishing in this pretty weather. And while that's happening, make sure you make it for them and make it fun for them. It will get you rewards. Since I've been doing this podcast tonight, I got a text from my grandson up in Rhode Island telling me how many days were left until he'd be back down here fishing on the 7 with me. He keeps track of that because we started him on the dock catching little sea bass and pinfish and yellowmouth trout and whatever, and then he graduated to flounder. And all the guides had the same thing to say. Don't take your children fishing after something you want to catch. Make it something that wiggles and bends the pole, and you will reap the rewards far down the road. Hey, listen, this week and every week, the Florida Sportsman Action Spotter has been brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Tournament Master Chum. Oh, it's the best chum on earth, all right. By Nosara, Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. By Young Boats. You want the finest in flats, bay, and offshore hybrids? You need to check out youngboats.com. And by the Castaway Hat Company. That's the hat that's helping our seas. For Florida Sportsman Magazine, I am Captain Rick Riles, and until next week, we will see you on the rip.